Hey, slackers, welcome back. This is video lesson 11. I can't even believe we are doing 11 videos so far. We are finally done with binomial distribution. Yes. And we're gonna take a quick pause before we hit something else up that kind of sucks. Sampling techniques. I'm gonna spend a hot minute on this stuff, like a week, and we're gonna move on, maybe a week and a half. It's really easy. It's just vocab, which I think is a nice break from all the crap we've been doing. So let's review what we have been doing though one last time. Let's take a look at the do now here. We have, you cast 6 dice, find the probability of landing on a 4 for each of the following. So I want a 4 for exactly 2 of the dice, okay? So I'm throwing 6 and I'm choosing that 2 of them I will land on a 4. What's the probability of a 4? One side has 4 dots on it out of 6 total sides. What's the probability of not having a 4? Well, if one side is a 4, 5 sides do not have a 4 on it. So whatever, I do what I want. I'm going to do what I want first. I want the 4, and I want to get it 2 times. Then you have to consider what you don't want, which is 5 out of 6. If 2 out of the 6 dice is 4s, then 4 of them is not. Okay, put that on my calculator real quick. 6 C2, and then it's 1 over 6 squared, and 5 over 6 to the 4th. And you get 0.201 if I round it. But remember, most of you don't have a graphing calculator, so this is what I want to say. Okay. Now, at most 3 dice. So the most it would be is 3 dice. Okay. So the part that I would want to see is if it's the most, is that the biggest or the smallest? Most. Very good. That's the biggest. So that means it would be 6C3 is the biggest. So then I count down. It would be 6C3 plus 6C2 plus 6C1 plus 6C0. Okay. So I'm actually going to start out writing this here because it's going to be a big old mess. 1/6 to the 3rd, 5/6 to the 6 minus 3 is 3, plus 6C, we count down, 2. 1/6 squared, 5/6 to the 6 minus 2 is 4, plus 6C1, 1/6 to the, takes this guy, 1, 5/6 to the 6 minus 1 is 5, plus 6C0, 1/6 to the 0, 5/6 to the 6 minus 0 is 6. That's all I would want to see for that for at most. The most it's going to be is 3 or 2 or 1 or 0. Now, at least 4 of them. So the least it could be is 4 of them. If it's the least, is that the biggest or the smallest? That's right, it's the smallest. So we'd start with 6C4, that's the smallest. 1/6 to the 4th. 5/6 to the 6 minus 4 is 2. Or if that's the smallest, we go bigger. So 6C5, 1/6 to the 5th, 5/6 to the 6 minus 5 is 1. Or all 6 of them land on a 4. 1/6 to the 6th, 5/6 to the 0. Now again, I'm not even going to bother with the decimals in these because it just takes up time I don't want to waste right now. But that's what you would end up getting. Okay? This is the work I would want to see. All right, so we're talking about sampling techniques. How do you go about looking at samples is very important, because if you ruin how you collect the data and they think it's biased, then your study gets thrown in the garbage right away. Okay? Right now, how they conduct studies with the coronavirus is key. How they're collecting their samples, where they're collecting them from. If people think it's a biased sample, then their findings are garbage. So we're living through statistics every day of our life right now, guys. I've heard Governor Cuomo say it a few times on briefings. This is all math. It's all math. It is. It's all math and it's all statistics. So when I take a look at this, I want to know, data can be collected in a variety of ways. One of the most common ways is with the use of a survey. The most common methods to conduct a survey are either by telephone, mail, or personal interview. Okay, so let's talk about the advantages and disadvantages of the different surveys. So an advantage and disadvantage to telephone surveys. Let's talk about an advantage. Doesn't cost a lot of money. It's cheap. Okay, it's cheap. Okay? Over a telephone, people are more willing to give their opinion. Why? Because it's not face-to-face. It takes the stress out of it. Because not face-to-face. All right, so an extreme example, but I'll go there. Let's say you're doing a study on STDs and you want to take a random sample of 150 people, and you can conduct this interview on telephone or you can conduct it as a personal interview, okay? Now, think about it. If you go to a mall and you stop and ask every fifth person walking into the mall, you want to be part of a study, the person's like, yeah, sure, I don't care. And you start asking them questions. Are you sexually active? How many partners have you had in the past week? How many partners have you had in the past month? Do you have an STD? Now, if you're asking them face-to-face in a mall, chances are they went there with their family, their friends, whatever. Actually, nobody's going to malls these days, but whatever, you get the point. Are they going to answer you honestly face-to-face versus would they be more willing to answer honestly over a telephone? I mean, think about it. They'd be more willing to answer over the telephone. I mean, they're not going to be like, yeah, I'm a walking gonorrhea. I got herpes, man. It's disgusting. I mean, they wouldn't want to say that to your face. Okay? So that's what I'm talking about when I say more willing to give their opinion because not face-to-face is because it takes out the embarrassment factor. Disadvantage. People may not have a phone. People don't have a phone. No answers. What happens when somebody calls and it's a solicitor? What do you do? I know what I do. Hang-ups. Okay. The tone or the attitude of the person on the phone could cause people to skew their answers. Like if you have like a nasty attitude or a weird voice, some people may not want to comply. So tone of interviewer can affect answers or compliance with answers. Okay, mailed questionnaire. That's the U.S. Census went out this year. It's the first time in our home that we've received the census. It goes out every 10 years. It goes to everybody who owns a home. So the mailed questionnaire, advantages, and I'm just going to list the disadvantages here instead of turning the page on the video. So an advantage of mail. Why does the U.S. Census still mail out their questionnaire? Because it covers a large geographical area. It covers a large geographical location. It's less expensive, so it's cheaper than a telephone survey. Hear my wild children. Why? Because you don't have to pay a telemarketer. I don't have to pay somebody to conduct the survey and to collect the information. And anonymity, I can't say the word. It's anonymous. Anonymity. This is actually the best way if you want to do something that's embarrassing, so to say, like I talked about doing a survey on STDs or, how sexually active somebody is or something of that sort. It being anonymous and the fact that the person can just fill it out and hand it back with no name on it really helps for honest and actual live data. Okay, some disadvantages. Low number of responses. Why? Because we look at junk mail. I don't have the time to fill it out. I throw it away. Some people may open it and give inappropriate answers and not take it seriously. You may have people who cannot read or do not speak the language. All something to consider if you're going to do a mailed questionnaire when you mail it out and where you're mailing it to. May not understand the questions. Maybe they can read and they speak the language, but they do not understand the questions. Okay? Remember, these are the top ways to conduct a survey: over the telephone, by mail, and now we're going to get into personal interview. And really, essentially nowadays, mail. Would it be mail at your house or email? That's right, it would probably be email, more likely, save even more money. Personal interview, advantages and disadvantages. Okay, an advantage is you can obtain in-depth, responses. You can clarify the questions, meaning if people don't understand them, you can restate the question. You have to be careful, though, that you're not leading them to answers when you do that. It's definitely the most expensive and time consuming. Most expensive and most time consuming. Why? Because you have to interview and hire the person who's going to conduct the survey. You have to train them so that they're not biased. You want them to be completely unbiased. So you have now interview time, training time. You have to pay them to go to the location, which usually in a situation like that with a job, you're reimbursing with gas, you're reimbursing food costs for them to have a break, and you're paying them some sort of hourly rate. Okay? Then you also have to pay somebody to collect the data and analyze the data still. There's a lot of expense and a lot of time. This is the most time consuming. The training is key. How to properly ask the questions, how to properly rephrase them, how to properly record them. You have to be very careful. This one has the tendency to be the most biased. You have to be very, very, very careful. Okay? All right, number 2, to obtain samples that are unbiased, that give each subject in the population equally likely chance of being selected, you use 4 basic methods of sampling. So there's 4 sampling methods: random, systematic, stratified, and clustering. Okay? Random has to be completely random. So it's selected by using chance methods or random numbers. Most commonly, some sort of a random number generator. So, students at William Floyd High School, an example, can be William Floyd High School students, and you randomly select by your ID number. The last digit of your ID number. That's a random sampling. I randomly choose 500 kids from the William Floyd High School by using a random number generator. There's even one stored into the graphing calculator. If we were in class, I would show you. And you randomly pick 500 kids based on their student ID number. The last 2 digits or the last 3 digits of their student ID number. Okay, systematic sampling. The root word you see is system. There's a system in place. Okay, so I'm going to write it out. You're going to be like, what the hell? And then I'm going to say it. You're going to be like, oh, okay, I get it.
I was trying to say, you dropped some weight. Did you lose a little bit of weight there?
Number each subject of the population.
Nice.
And then
What are you doing?
select every kth subject. So the example is, like I said, you go to the mall and you ask every 5th person who enters the mall. Ask every 5th person entering the mall. That's your kth, every 5th. You go to an assembly line in a manufacturing factory and you pull every 100th pair of jeans that's made and you look at quality control. Go to McDonald's, pull every 10th cheeseburger that's made. Check for quality control and freshness. Stand at the doors of William Floyd High School. Ask every third kid that walks into the building. So it's got to be every eighth, every third, every fifth, every 10th, every 100th. That's systematic sampling. Okay? Stratifying and clustering can be a little complicated. All right? So you have a big population and you divide it into small random samples. What those samples are divided up and based on is whether it's stratified or clustering. Okay? Stratified is when it's divided up by some sort of a category. Gender, male or female. Age, ages 10 to 12, 13 to 14, 15 to 16. Race, ethnicity, religion. Okay? Those are all stratified samplings. Cluster sampling has to be a large geographical location or a large school district. So I want to do cluster sampling of Long Island. I'm going to divide it up by county, Suffolk and Nassau County. That's cluster sampling. I want to do a large sample of Long Island. I divide it up by town, Mastic Beach, Shirley. That's cluster sampling. That's why large school district works, because you have different buildings for each school district. So like there are 2 middle schools. You have PACA and you have New Middle School. What determines the difference between what school you go to is where you live. Okay, where you live determines whether you go to PACA or New Middle. Okay, those are cluster sampling. So let's try to write this in words. Divide population into random samples based on categories.
You want some Blue's Clues?
So an example would be
Now it's Ophelia's turn.
samples based on gender, race, religion, age, all those things. Cluster sampling is you divide the population into random samples
Believe it or not,
based on a large
through the channels to get her to
geographical
down. She was up and down.
location, which could also be a large
Stop crying and stare at us.
school district because you have multiple schools. So an example is
I've heard of that.
Suffolk versus Nassau, or towns, or cities, or states in a country. These are all cluster sampling. And then the last example is convenience sampling. Convenience sampling is when they're already set up in random samples. So a lot of people say schools are the best example of a convenience sample because of their classes. You're randomly putting your classes based on a scheduling program. Well, that's what they say. I don't know how much I agree with that. Okay? All right, so really quick, let's do a couple of quick ones, and then you guys have homework. So this was also attached. Let's just do a couple of examples to make sure you understand this, then we're going to wrap it up. So we have, I want to know, is it random, systematic, stratified, or clustering? Random number generator. System in place for systematic, every 10th, every 5th, every 100th. Stratified or clustering. Stratified is a category, cluster is a geographical location. So take a look at example 1. The government of the United States wishes to evaluate the number of immigrants in North America. They choose a random sample on the basis of states such as California, Texas, Florida, Massachusetts, Colorado, and Hawaii. So they want to do it whole U.S., and they divide it up by states. Which one would that be? They're dividing it up by geographical location, states. Very good. That's cluster sampling. Why? Because it's divided by states. Okay? In an organization of 500 employees, if the HR team decides on conducting team building activities, they decide to pick names out of a bowl. They're just picking names out of a bowl. Which one is that? That's random sampling. Because they're picking names randomly out of a bowl. It's completely random. Okay, example 3. A researcher intends to collect a systematic sample. I always forget to pull this one out. Of 500 people in a population of 5,000. Each element of the population is numbered from 1 to 5,000, and every 10th person is chosen to be part of the sample. If it's every 10th, that's a system, which it already says in the problem. I have to delete that. It's systematic sampling because it's every 10th. And last but not least, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to wrap it up. A researcher looking to analyze the characteristics of people belonging to different annual income divisions. They choose a random sample according to annual family income. So they divide it up by people who make less than 20,000, people who make between 21 and 30, between 31 and 40, and 41 and 50. So if they have a big group of people and dividing it up by how much money they make, by different brackets of income, that would be stratified sampling. And that's because it's divided by income. So your homework worksheet, which is attached, sorry, I'm losing my mind here. Your homework worksheet is going to look like this. And basically, I want you to tell me random, systematic, stratified, or clustering for all of them. So number 1, choose which one it is, or convenience. Random, systematic, stratified, clustering, or convenience. And then for 2 through 8, it's also random, systematic, stratified, or clustering, or convenience. Okay? So basically numbers 1 through 8. So your homework for video lesson 11 is to complete numbers 1 to 8 on this worksheet. All right, my darlings, have a good one. Take care. Brush your hair.